Authorities have not yet released nationality information for reported fatalities.
And two Belgian government officials are offering to resign in the wake of the terror attacks. Country's interior and justice ministers have offered to step down over failure to track one of the bombers who had been expelled twice from Turkey. The EU reportedly told Belgian authorities to fix gaps in the country's border security just weeks before suicide bombers attacked the airport and a subway station. Los Angeles police confirmed that comedian Gary Shandling has died. An earlier report from TMZ said he died at a Los Angeles area hospital today after suffering a massive heart attack. The report said the 66-year-old was not suffering from any illness and that he was alive when he got to the hospital. You're listening to the latest from 24/7 News.
Listen to KCAA Loma Linda for less confrontation and more information.
Open Season is on the air, in the air, and almost everywhere. Today's special guest, Lakers trainer Gary Vitti in the blind. He's retiring, so is Kobe Bryant. Coincidence? You make the call. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Sports Fan and all ships at sea. Too much talk and not enough time this week, so let's get to it. Let's go to the hoop. NCAA Sweet 16. Sweetest thing I've ever seen. The NFL rules. Oh, and those rules are changing. It's Hard Knocks, a slow boat to China for the LA Rams, while the Browns ponder what can RG3 do for them. On the court, tough times for the Clippers in Warrior World. Stick 'em up, Dwight Howard. You're busted. Major League Baseball goes to Cuba. Good idea or close, but no cigar. Another bad break for the Dodgers. Ooh, did you catch it on TV? And say no more. A tennis exec trips over his coattails and takes women's tennis down with him. All that, plus Lakers athletic trainer Gary Vitti talking about Kobe, retirement, and those zany things that go on in NBA training rooms.
Wow. I'm not sure, because there's a lot of crazy things that happened. It probably had something to do with Shaq. But I can't think of it off the top of my head, and it's probably something I couldn't share with the public anyway.
He's not going to kiss and tell. You're tuned in to Open Season, where our motto remains, if it's news and sports, it's news to us. Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Burnett. This is Open Season. Our phone number's 909-888-5222. That's right. We're so big, we've got two phone numbers. 888-909-1050 is our secondary number. Hey, Ted Sobel is back on the program this week while Mark Mad Mancini is out on assignment. Ted, here's the big question of the day.
Yes.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison?
No.
Have you ever seen a grown man naked?
Too many.
Oh, this is a sad show already. NCAA Sweet 16 action set to get underway in the West Regional at the Honda Center in Anaheim. Just over an hour away, Ted, just down the street from us, and some good games. Texas A&M and Oklahoma, Duke and Oregon. Who do you like?
I love Oregon in that game. I think Duke is done. They're not the team they've been in the past, and Oregon is really looking strong right now. I like what they bring to the table in this matchup, and they're small favorites anyway. It's not like it would be a surprise, but right. I expect them to move on.
The Ducks and Duke. It should be an interesting one. Oregon, the number 1 seed in the West. And how about this Texas A&M team? Actually, I think Oklahoma can beat A&M, but the way A&M came back against Northern Iowa, man, one of the most amazing games I've seen in the tournament in a long, long time.
That's March Madness, though. It's sort of what you expect. I would think it would be a really good game as well, but I just think Oklahoma is a little bit too much for the guys.
All right, we'll see what happens. The South Regional, and you got to love the place where they're playing this. It's the KFC Yum Center.
I discussed this a few weeks ago that I am the only person on the planet that has seen every single game that he's played, every minute that he's played. Yeah. So, that's kind of fitting that we're going.
Everybody there? Is anybody there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, is Ted with us still?
Ever wonder how celebrities get their skin red carpet ready? Look no further than the Fire and Ice Facial from Is Clinical, available at Nina MD Beverly Hills. The Fire and Ice Facial is an amazing clinical treatment designed to rapidly and safely regenerate the skin, reducing fine lines and wrinkles for an envious glow.
I think Miami can beat Villanova, and I think Kansas will beat Maryland. On to the Midwest Regional. That'll be Friday and Sunday at the United Center in Chicago, of course, the house that Michael Jordan built. Number 4, Iowa State, hanging in there. The top seed is Virginia. That game will go off at 4:10 tomorrow afternoon Pacific time. Got to go with Virginia in that one along the way. And then number 11, Gonzaga. How did the Zags do it? Year after year after year. You look at the talent. You look at the talent pool that they have to choose from. You stack up their talent against some of the other teams, and you say, how do they get into the tournament every year? But they do. They got great coaching up there, and they're going against a surprising team, I think, in Syracuse, the number 10 seed in the Midwest Regional. A lot of people didn't even think the Orange deserved to be in the tournament. They were one of the last teams to get in, and yet Boeheim somehow, year after year after year, gets them up and ready to go. I'm going to go with Virginia, and I'm going to go with Gonzaga in that Midwest Regional. Over in the East Regional, that's another Friday-Sunday matchup. That'll be at the Wells Fargo Center in Philly. Number 7, Wisconsin, going against number 6, Notre Dame. That will be a late start on Friday, about 7:30 our time. Yeah, Notre Dame they just keep hanging around. They seem to find ways to win. They're a tough, scrappy team. They lost some players from last year. Yet they're back in. I'm going to go with Notre Dame, the number 6 seed, over Wisconsin, the number 7 seed. And then you got Indiana and North Carolina. Now, North Carolina is the top seed in the East. When they're playing well, they may be the best team in the country. Right now, I think Kansas is probably playing the best of any of the teams in the tournament. But that Indiana team is scrappy. You know what? I'm going to go with Notre Dame and Indiana in that East Regional. We'll see how that plays out. I mean, listen, you could throw darts at the brackets and have as good a chance as anybody in these things. I've got 2 brackets. One I picked mascots, the toughest mascots, and I had Duke winning that one. I mean, how do you beat a Blue Devil? I don't know. You know, there were some acts of God, there were cyclones and, you know, things like that. But I went with Duke in the mascots one. And my other one, I've still got 2 alive. I've got Oklahoma and I've got Kansas, and I've got Kansas winning it all. So we'll have to see how this thing plays out. We're still trying to reconnect with Ted Sobel. We had some problems with our audio feed, but we're rolling along here on Open Season, where our number is 909-888-5222 or 888-909-1050. Now, here's an interesting thing. The entire University of Kentucky basketball team, at least the guys who are eligible, and we're talking starters, we're talking walk-ons. I think Ted may be back with us here.
I'm back.
Ted is back. I don't know where you went or how you left.
My computer just totally did what it does.
This is some high-tech stuff we got going on here on Openseason. But I'm at the point here, Ted. I'm talking about this Kentucky basketball team, yes, where starters, reserves, walk-ons, anybody who's eligible is declaring for the NBA draft this year. And they're taking advantage of the new rule, which allows you to declare for the draft. And if you get invited to the combine and you want to continue, you can. But if the scouts and the people who make the decision say, you know, we don't think you're ready, you can go right back to Kentucky and continue to play. And so Calipari, I think, is sending some kind of a message here saying, okay, this is the way the rules are. We're going to play by the rules. So he's got his entire team, at least those guys who are still eligible, declaring for the draft. I think it's kind of interesting.
It's a fascinating thing. One of my issues is this one and done deal is, from a law standpoint, is you should be able to be free to do whatever you want to do. If you want to move on in whatever career, freedom is there, and do it. The problem is that the NBA is going to continue to get a bunch of kids who are fundamentally not sound in basketball, and the game is going to get worse and worse. You've got better athletes and bigger and stronger guys going into pro sports, but they're not ready to be a pro, and that is not good at the pro level.
Well, I think it hurts college basketball, and I think it hurts NBA basketball along the way. And, of course, the The reason for the one and done was that they didn't want high school kids coming out because they said they weren't ready. Now they're saying, 1 year in, they're not ready. I don't know how you fix it. You can't make guys stay in school. Listen, if you're into computers and you're going to Stanford and you get a job offer, you don't have to stay around until you graduate to take that job offer. You take it. If you're a tennis player and you're 15 years old and you're a phenom, you can jump into that sport and you can play. So the rights are there, but there's got to be some kind of a balancing act that goes on here, Ted, to make this so it works better for both sports. And I don't see how it can.
Well, one of the issues is, especially with how you chose those specific things as far as tennis and computers, those are all individual deals. We're talking team sports now, and it hurts from a team standpoint, and it's not going to be good for anybody. I think what they ought to do is they ought to have a better developmental league that is a combination of college and basketball in this case, and figure out how they could do that.
Well, I think the Brain Trust is trying to figure this stuff out, but this is the best they've come up with so far, and it just doesn't work. There's no question about it. All right, we got Ted Sobel back with us. I'm Larry Burnett. Coming up later on Open Season, Major League Baseball in Cuba, the Rams in China, and Lakers trainer Gary Vitti right here talking about retirement, his and Kobe Bryant's.
We discussed this a few weeks ago that I am the only person on the planet that has seen every single game that he's played, every minute that he's played. Yeah. So, that's kind of fitting that we're going out together.
Ever wonder how celebrities get their skin red carpet ready? Look no further than the Fire and Ice Facial from Is Clinical, available at Nina MD Beverly Hills. The Fire and Ice Facial is an amazing clinical treatment designed to rapidly and safely regenerate the skin, reducing fine lines and wrinkles for an envious glow, while smoothing and softening to achieve that ageless face. Excellent for all skin types and ages, Is Clinical's Fire and Ice Facial is a celebrity favorite and provides dramatic results with no downtime, peeling, or side effects. The Fire and Ice Facial is normally $215, but call 310-777-7511 now. Mention this ad and pay only $179. That's over $35 in savings just by mentioning this ad. Don't miss out on glowing and radiant skin from Is Clinical and Nina MD Beverly Hills. For more info, visit ninamd.com or call 310-777-7511. That's 310-777-7511. Ever wonder how celebrities get their skin red carpet ready? Look no further than the Fire and Ice Facial from Is Clinical, available at Nina MD Beverly Hills. The Fire and Ice Facial is an amazing clinical treatment designed to rapidly and safely regenerate the skin, reducing fine lines and wrinkles for an envious glow, while smoothing and softening to achieve that ageless face. Excellent for all skin types and ages, Is Clinical's Fire and Ice Facial is a celebrity favorite and provides dramatic results with no downtime, peeling, or side effects. The Fire and Ice Facial is normally $215, but call 310-777-7511 now. Mention this ad and pay only $179. That's over $35 in savings just by mentioning this ad. Don't miss out on glowing and radiant skin from Is Clinical and Nina MD Beverly Hills. For more info, visit ninamd.com or call 310-777-7511. That's 310-777-7511.
Hi, this is Kevin Harlan. I've called Super Bowls and Final Fours, but I've never heard anything like Open Season here on KCAA. This show has no regard for human life, and that is a good thing.
Back to Open Season. Our special guest interview today is Gary Vitti, the longtime athletic trainer of the Los Angeles Lakers. He's retiring at the end of this season after 32 years. 32 years, Gary Vitti. I remember you way back when.
Yeah, 32 years. It's been actually more than half of my life. I've been the head athletic trainer here.
And the phone never stops ringing, does it?
It doesn't. Okay, and And now with the new technology, it's not just a telephone, but it's text messaging, it's emails, it's constant. It never ends.
What made you decide that this was the time to make your exit?
Well, I think it's several things. My age, for sure, 62. It's a retirement age. You can start your NBA pension at 62. Spending more than half of my life on a schedule that I can't create. And, I missed a lot with my family.
Yeah.
And so, going forward, I'd like to spend, maybe the next 30 years, if I live that long, on their schedule, on my daughters and my wife, and whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, because they've been operating on my schedule. It's time. It's just time.
When you look back, how many birthdays, how many holidays did you have to put off until maybe the day after, or postpone because I got a game that day, or I got practice that day, or somebody needs my attention that day?
Yeah, that it's almost every day.
Yeah.
Our training room operates about 320 days a year. So we're 7 days a week, and if you're in the head job, then it's 24 hours a day. You're always on call. So it's been it's been a long haul. It's been great. I've had a great great career, a great ride. But it's time to kind of slow down a little bit, I think.
Talking with Lakers athletic trainer Gary Vitti, you signed on here in 1984, so you were just in time to see the Lakers get over that Celtics hump and win that championship. Were you aware back then how big that whole rivalry was?
I was. I actually think in part that's why I was hired. Pat was looking. Pat Riley was looking to change things around. I was sort of the young and upcoming, educated athletic trainer. Real science behind what we were doing back then, evidence-based practices, and Pat was looking for that advantage. Nutrition wasn't really talked about much in the NBA. Strength training was actually looked down upon, and those were some of the things that I brought to the table.
Yeah, hard to believe that there was a time when they thought if you lifted weights, it could actually hurt your performance on the basketball court, right?
Yeah, I actually took a lot of criticism for creating a strength training program at the time, but in hindsight now, it's 2020, everyone's doing it.
When you look at Jerry West and Pat Riley and the Forum days, what jumps out in your head, Gary?
Character. This whole sort of Laker dynasty legacy thing, I believe, was created with Bill Sharman. So it actually took a Celtic to come to the Lakers to teach him how to win. And I think the things that he brought here were absorbed by Jerry West and Pat Riley, and then they gave it to Magic and Kareem and James Worthy and Jamal Wilkes, and I was a part of that. It trickled down to me, and and our owner, of course, the late great Dr. Buss, was a champion in his own right, and so those are the things that I think about when I look at those people.
I want to ask you about that because, obviously everybody knows about Dr. Buss and the influence he's had on the basketball portion of things, but what about the behind the scenes and the training? He must have had an impact there as well.
Well, Dr. Buss was a wonderful owner in the sense that, number one, he was loyal, okay? And so if he hired you and he trusted you, then he kept you on and he allowed you to do your job. Now, he may have come around once in a while and asked a few questions, but he didn't really poke his nose into your business if everything was going well. And there was maybe 2 or 3 times a year that he would say, Gary, let's talk, and we would talk about the team, but we'd also talk about what books he was reading. I mean, he was a voracious reader. He read all the classics. And he was always interested in what I was reading in history. And so, both our relationship had, part of it was basketball, but we also had a personal relationship, which I really enjoyed. He was a brilliant man.
Yeah, amazing. It might be hard to put a fine point on this, but In the years that you've been in this job, you've obviously seen technology change radically. What's been the biggest 2, 3 things that have changed what you do?
Well, probably, the things that drastically changed sports medicine from the time that I came in was, number one, the diagnostics are much better today. So when I first came in, there was no such thing as an MRI. So that really helped. And then the second thing is probably arthroscopic surgery, where people that were having surgeries in those days were full arthrotomies. That means they completely open up your joint. There's a lot of trauma that goes along with the surgery like that. Now they poke a few holes in you and they put a scope in there, and it's much less traumatic to the patient. And so those things for sure have changed the way we do things, and that we can get people back quicker.
And we'll have more with Gary Vitti coming up a little bit later on Open Season. Larry Burnett, Ted Sobel back with you right here on the show. You've been around Gary a long time. I've been around Gary a long time. What sticks out in your mind as he heads towards retirement, Ted?
Well, he's a very special guy. I mean, he was ahead of his time. There's no doubt about it. You talk about things like arthroscopic surgery, basically changing not just sports, but everyone's lives. It affected me. I mean, I had my gallbladder removed, and they used to hear about the stories of the kind of surgery you'd be out of commission for a few months, and I was fine in a few days. So I can only imagine if you're a professional athlete, those kinds of things. But Gary was a pioneer, no question about it, and a very special guy to be around. He's fun, he's interesting, and boy, I'll tell you, he is constantly on the move, and I could see why it is time for him to say, you know what, I've had enough of this. Let me do something else.
32 years is a long, and people don't realize how much time goes into it, how many nights he has stayed up all night long giving treatment to these players and trying to get them ready, and it's a thankless job, but he's done it great. So we'll hear from Gary a little bit later on. We'll talk about Kobe Bryant and his retirement. Kobe played last night in Phoenix, Ted. He scored 17 in that Lakers loss to the Suns. Randall had 19 and 15 in that game. Like it or not, the loss actually helps the Lakers when it comes to the draft pick coming up. They're 15 and 56 and now 5 games behind the Suns in the loss column. And
it's another great loss, Larry. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it was one of those games where you weren't sure either team really wanted to win, Ted. I mean, these guys are battling. And here's the deal with the Lakers. If they don't get into the top 3 spots, they don't get a first-round draft pick this year. So it is extremely important for them to get into those top 3 spots. And whether you like it or not, the more they lose, the better their chances are along the way. They'll play Friday at Denver. Now, the Clippers at Golden State last night, Ted. Every time I think the Clippers are, ready to compete, they fall flat against this team. They've been beaten all 4 games by Golden State this year.
Yeah, but let's face it. I mean, it's not the same team without Blake Griffin. I don't care how well the Clips have played without him. When you're playing the Warriors without him, you got a major uphill climb, and they just are not good enough to beat that team. In a 7-game series, they'd be thrilled to get 1 game. But with Blake, it's another story because he just brings in a different game that, especially from a physical standpoint, it's going to make the defense really have to stretch from as far as the Warriors are concerned. I look forward to his return. Hopefully, he's going to be healthy.
Yeah, well, the thing is, he can work up front with Jordan. He's got the strength to work upside. He can deal with a Draymond Green up there as well. He can go out and play defense. He can do a lot of things. There's no question about that. But, this is a team. I know people love Chris Paul. I keep saying, where is he when they need him? And they needed him last night, and he didn't step up.
Well, you know what? I don't agree with you. He had a bad game. There's no doubt about that. And so did J.J. Redick. I mean, his shooting was awful, and he was wide open many times. So I'm just going to say it was a bad game for them. But, I mean, what's Chris Paul going to do? He can't be a one-man team. If you're throwing the ball out to a wide-open J.J. Redick and he misses 6 in a row, what are you going to do? I mean, his job is not to score, and if Chris Paul's job is to score, they're in trouble. That's not what his game is.
His job is to run the show and to make everybody else around him better. And I just don't think he does it in critical situations. The Warriors are 64-7 now, 51 straight wins at home, 33-0 at home this year.
And that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson duo, they weren't that great in the first half, and then they end up with 65 points between them by the time the game's over.
They don't have to be great at times because they turn it on. They can go on a 15-0 run and you don't even know what hit you.
Yeah.
And it happens almost every single game. I'll tell you what fascinates me more than anything. Golden State's an incredible team. But how about this? Golden State and San Antonio, neither has lost a home game this year. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. And they're still battling for home court advantage. When they get to the playoffs, and they play 2 more times this year. Now the question is what's gonna be on the table and what's gonna be at stake when they do meet. But man, it could be some terrific games. So Golden State now needs to win 9 of their last 11 games if they're going to break Chicago's 72 win season record. Do we care about Dwight Howard and using Stickum? Do we care?
No.
Okay.
Well, you know what? If it wasn't Dwight Howard, I don't think we'd be talking about it. But because it's Dwight and because of his past and how people perceive him, he just digs another few feet into underground there and saying, you know what, I'm just different and you're going to have to accept me.
Well, in his words, I ain't tripping. So that's that kind of says it right there. And good news, 2018, the NBA All-Star Game coming back to Los Angeles. The Lakers and Clippers will co-host it. The NBA runs it. But always good to see the big events coming back into Staples Center.
Yeah, we got the NHL All-Star Game next year, too.
Terrific. All good. All right, later on Open Season, another tough break for the Dodgers, some hard knocks for the LA Rams, plus more with Gary Vitti as he talks about Kobe Bryant's retirement and the Mambas' incredible competitiveness.
I mean, he'll do anything to win, anything, okay? And, I mean, he will rip your heart out to win a game of tiddlywinks. I mean, he's just the way he's programmed.
Have you ever gone to use a flashlight and the batteries were dead or the inside of the flashlight corroded, only having to throw it away? Or in a location where you had no way to charge your cell phone or camera? Well, all that has changed. Now there's Hybrid Light. The Hybrid Light brings the best of both worlds together with a strong 160 lumen LED light that lasts 12 hours on a single charge, and after a recharge from any light or power source, you're ready to go again. Hybrid Light lasts 7 long years and is even waterproof and also contains a USB port to plug in your cell phone or camera to give you that special charge when you're not near an outlet. All this for the low price of $39.95 with promo code GARY. Call 1-800-297-8109 to be the first to have this great tool, or go to our website, hybridlight.com. That's 800-297-8109 or hybridlight.com, hybridlight.com, and don't forget to use promo code GARY.
I'm Kevin Harlan, and this open season show hits you right between the eyes. Let's get back to Larry and Mark.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Open Season. Ted Sobel in this week. Mark Mancini out on assignment. And, you know, we're getting closer and closer to opening day in baseball. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And I just can't figure out the Dodgers. It's like they just keep tripping over themselves and shooting themselves in the foot. And the most recent thing is Andre Ethier fouls a ball off his foot in spring training, off his leg in spring training. They do x-rays. It doesn't show anything. And then they go and do an MRI, and turns out the guy's got a broken leg. He's going to be out maybe 10 to 14 weeks, and they were counting on him in left field. They were counting on him possibly to lead off some this year, Ted. This team has just got more troubles than they know what to do with.
Yeah, it's really funny that we're talking now how the Dodgers are counting on Andre Ethier in the last year, couple of years. They couldn't even count how many games he missed. So
well, and they kept trying to get rid of him.
Exactly, and I would have too, but you couldn't get rid of it because it was a bad contract. There's nobody who would have taken it. Look, I just think it just shows you what their philosophy is as far as having depth, not necessarily greatness, but depth. Right. Now the depth is going to help. It's going to be interesting to see how Carl Crawford steps into the role now, because he's always been the guy that you thought would do the job, but he's either gets hurt or he's inconsistent or whatever. He's not a great day-to-day ball player anymore. So he's going to have to do something special here, at least for the first few months. Looks like Ethier may not be back until July.
Well, you know, if you could get in the Wayback Machine and get the Carl Crawford before he went to Boston, you'd have a great player. But once he got to Boston, he just had so many injuries, and he's got this ridiculous contract. He just can't stay healthy.
No, remember, the Dodgers were forced to take him in that deal.
Yeah, he was part of the big deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Crawford's not in there, you're not getting Gonzalez. So that's why they got him. And I understand the move, but you're stuck with the contract forever. And we knew this was going to be like this. We didn't know he would be as this inconsistent.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not healthy, what are you going to do? So here's his chance to step up and at least do something special this year.
Well, he shows some signs of being able to do it every once in a while, but not consistently and not for any great length of time. And so it looks like they're going to have a platoon out there in left now with Crawford and Van Slyke. And, that doesn't exactly set the Major League world on fire, but it is what it is. Now,
you know what? Scott Van Slyke's not a bad ball player. I think, and I'd like to see him play a little bit more regularly. And who knows, he might be able to step up and have a career year for him. And that's all the Dodgers are asking. Somebody have a career type year.
Well, we expect that Vin Scully will have another career year in his final one. And the Time Warner Cable situation, I don't know if they're going to work it out. We just heard this week that they've offered discounts to some of the cable carriers, cut the monthly cost per subscriber from about $5 down to $3.50. Listen, from what I hear, even with the discount, DirecTV and some of the other carriers aren't interested in eating those charges or passing them along to the subscribers.
And you know what, Larry? I would not be interested either. I don't think $3.50 per subscriber. We're not talking about sports subscriber. We're talking about everybody has to pay $3.50 more a month. And not everybody cares about the Dodgers. Right. If I'm DirecTV, I say, nice try, guys. Come back to me when maybe it's $1. Or maybe it's more just geared towards the sports end of it, and we'll deal with it from there. But that is way too much.
Well, and the other answer is to put it on a tier by itself and make it a pay-per-view thing. If you really want it and want to pay for it, you can. But, the cable people don't want to deal with that either. And, the Dodgers and Time Warner Cable want to get their money back. Time Warner Cable put a ton of money into this thing, and they're not getting anything out of it. So it's a difficult deal. Haven't heard a whole lot about the Angels. Nothing really earth-shattering coming out of there. They're still trying to figure out their rotation. They've got some new people who we'll see in the infield, but they've been kind of flying under the radar during spring training, Ted.
Well, I think that's because the radar is very, very high, and they're not expecting to do a whole lot. They look really average to me, and I want to see what Garrett Richards is going to do. Is he going to really show that he's the ace? Because he's got to come every 5 days and really be something special. And you know what? I think it's in him. I think he has great stuff. I think he has top 3-4 stuff in the majors. And now they're saying he's throwing the ball faster than he's thrown it since high school. Wow. And that's impressive. He's been averaging 98 miles per hour, his fastball, all spring. So if he just keeps that up and he's developing a pretty good changeup, he could definitely be a solid ace, but it's the other guys behind him you got to be concerned about.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you could have an ace in Richards. You definitely have an ace in Kershaw with the Dodgers. You have Mike Trout with the Angels. But what else do you have? I don't know. And hopefully it'll play out in a good way. What did you think about Major League Baseball going to Cuba?
I actually liked it. I can understand why some Cuban people were not happy about it. And it's a touchy situation. Yeah. But you know what? You have to start somewhere. And this is one way to begin diplomacy. It's through sports. Sports is the best way. It broke the color barrier in not just baseball with Jackie Robinson, but in this country in many, many different ways. And I think this is a good start. Whether it turns into anything, we have no idea. It's a bad government. It's a bad country. And they've got major, major issues. But if we can maybe advance through sports, let's try.
Well, sports can create a lot of bridges. And maybe this will be a bridge that leads to something. I lived in Miami for several years, and there's a large Cuban population there. And there are a lot of people there. And I saw them come over on the boat lifts, and I saw them come over in rafts. And there's a lot of people there whose families were destroyed by the Castro regime. And a lot of people who were forced to flee that country. And those memories don't go away. So
I like the idea of opening diplomacy. I like the idea of baseball being a bridge, but I sure understand the people who say, why would you want to deal with these people who were so cruel, for so many years to the people that they love. Sad note yesterday, Joe Garagiola died. Yeah. The guy was around forever. He did game shows. He was a so-so catcher, funny guy. He was kind of Bob Uecker before Bob Uecker was Bob Uecker.
That's true. As a matter of fact, I thought he was a better broadcaster than Bob Uecker, although I like Bob too. I just think Garagiola is one of those guys for anybody in our age, anybody over the age of 50. You remember Joe every Saturday with the game of the week. Yeah. And for several years working with Vin Scully. It's funny, it's interesting because I think that he and Vinny at the end didn't get along great because Garagiola wasn't happy that Scully didn't allow him to speak as much.
Oh my goodness.
I thought it was a chemistry thing. I mean, what you got a Garagiola who wants to speak all the time, and then you got Vin Scully whose job is to speak. It's not a good connection there. But Joe has talked about how special it was working with the greatest broadcaster ever in sports. So it just brings back a lot of childhood memories, and it's sad, but hey, in 90 years, I'll take it.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's kind of like the Al Michaels Chick Hearn syndrome. Yep. When those two worked together, and Al couldn't get a word in edgewise, and of course he turned out to be a great broadcaster as well.
Yeah, they worked together for like an hour and a half, though, compared to several years.
I know, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Let's switch over to football. The Rams, they're talking about playing a home game in China in 2018, continuing with our international theme here on Open Season, Ted.
Yeah, well, I understand it would be best to have it as the first game of the regular season, so that way they would have more time to go there, adjust to the time change, and then come back. It makes some sense to me. I have no idea what they're doing in China. They don't play football in China. Nobody cares as far as I know. But hey, they're trying to make it a global sport. Good luck. What can I say?
Maybe football will be the bridge with China that baseball is with Cuba.
Don't bet on it.
And then the other thing about the Rams, they're going to be the subject of Hard Knocks, the training series on HBO this summer. And I don't think they need the distraction, but they seem to think it'll be good for the organization.
Well, I don't know if they think it's good for the organization or the league thinks it's better for the league. And I think it's more the latter. Jeff Fisher turned it down a few years ago in St. Louis. So I'm guessing that the league said, hey, you know what? We think this would be a good idea. So go ahead and do it because people want to see what it's like to have to transition to Los Angeles from St. Louis.
Well, they make for some great TV. There's no question about that. And the other thing, and I don't like this at all, the Rams have decided they're going to stick with their current uniforms, at least until they move into their new stadium. Man, I wish they would go back to those great blue and gold or blue and yellow unis that they had when they were down in Anaheim and the good old days. Bring those things back. That's what the Rams are, not this whatever it is, blue and gold or something.
Well, we had on our old Beast 980 show Kevin Demoff, the CEO of the Rams, and he talked about that they could not they can't make any uniform change for a couple of years. They have to do it well in advance anyway. That's a league rule. So I don't know how much of that comes into play or if they just saying, you know what, we're going to keep it as is, and then we're going to make a big splash when we go into the newest stadium.
Yeah, I know in the NBA you have to have a year in advance before you make any kind of a uniform change. But I would think that the league would go along if they wanted to go back to the old uniforms. And then the NFL decided they're going to keep the point after touchdown. They're going to keep that the long distance that they moved it to this year. And touchbacks are going to come out to the 25-yard line now to cut down on the danger factor in runbacks. And the other thing is it's going to be like a little bit like the NBA. If you get 2 technical fouls for unsportsmanlike conduct, the refs are going to be able to kick players out of the games.
I actually have no problem with that whatsoever. If you look at the statistics, there aren't that many of them anyway. And if you get 2 in one game, you deserve to be tossed. So I have no problem with that. The touchbacks, I guess it makes sense from an injury standpoint. The extra point I absolutely hate. I think it's stupid, makes no sense. And when you come late in the season and weather is a factor, it's already happened this past year. It was a factor in teams not either advancing into the playoffs or when they already were in because they missed an extra point due to weather. It is wrong. It is stupid rule.
See, I disagree completely because I like that factor being brought in because before then it was an automatic. You might as well have just given them the point and not even kicked the football. Plus, I like
what I'm saying, Larry, is I think it's stupid. It should be. It's not automatic. It should be, but it shouldn't be something that is so difficult because of wins. And I'm talking late season now. That's not fair to play an entire game and lose because of an extra point.
Both teams have the same conditions. I don't see a problem with it. I like that aspect of it. I really do. In case you missed it earlier today, RG3 has signed with the Cleveland Browns, 2-year deal, $15 million. Hey, they need a quarterback. I don't know what his condition is. I don't know what his mindset is. But if he's anything like he was coming out of college, he could be great. But I'm not sure he still is.
Well, you know what? I think his physical condition is fine. He hasn't played in a year and a half, and that helps. Everything I understand about him is it's just going to be a totally fresh start. He's going to work under Hugh Jackson, a new head coach who knows a lot about offense. He's been an offensive coordinator. But the issue to me is whether this guy can read defenses. Forget all of that stuff. He has all the talent that you need, but he has not been able to read defenses. If he doesn't learn that, everything else is a moot point.
Yeah, and they're going to have to protect this guy too because he's been damaged goods.
By the way, that's assuming he's going to play. I still think with the second pick, they're going to take a Jared Goff out of Cal.
We will see. We'll mark that one down. Before we head to the break, Ron Rivera comes out and says losing players in the Super Bowl should not have to do interviews. Now, of course, Cam Newton walked out of his press conference, got some bad press for it, whatever. What are you talking about, Ron? Come on. This is a sport. People want to hear. Reporters want to get their job done. You're going to tell me if you lose, you don't talk after the Super Bowl? I don't get it.
I lose respect a lot for Ron Rivera, and I like almost everything about him. I mean, what are you doing, Coach? What do you think? First of all, it is the media and the press and the coverage that makes you so much money. You can't come out and talk about a football game. It's that bad. You got to be kidding me. Now, I'm coming from a different standpoint, living in locker rooms half my life, but it makes no sense whatsoever. And, Coach, if you were on the other side of this thing, you'd probably be saying, what the heck's the matter with that guy? Why isn't he talking? Talk is cheap. Sorry, Coach, you're dead wrong.
And the other thing about it is we talk about sports being a lesson. That means you handle things when they're good and when they're bad. And you find out a lot more about your players and your team and your organization when they're dealing with adversity than when things are going well. All right, just ahead on Open Season, the tennis controversy. We'll talk about that. And Lakers trainer Gary Vitti talks Kobe Bryant and the keys to NBA success.
You know, there's three things. There's talent, there's brains, and there's toughness. Okay? If you have two of those things, okay, you can get in the NBA. If you have three of those things, you're a superstar.
MD Beverly Hills provides skincare solutions for patients undergoing cancer treatments. Personalized treatment regimens are initiated to achieve optimum remission states in those dealing with cancer. The IS Clinical Harmony Cancer Care Facial at MD Beverly Hills safely offers hope and relief for those challenged with the side effects and repercussions of intense cancer treatments such as radiation and chemotherapy. Rejuvenate, replenish, and soothe your skin. Let our certified technicians at MD Beverly Hills safely and effectively heal your skin with our IS Clinical products that are pharmaceutical grade, botanically based, paraben-free, and do not enter the bloodstream. Enjoy a day of pampering and revitalize your skin with MD Beverly Hills and our IS Clinical Harmony Cancer Care Facial for just $179. Each patient will receive a complimentary gift bag for take-home care. For more information, please call 310-777-7511 or visit us at www.ninamd.com. That's www.ninamd.com.
Hi, this is Kevin Harlan. I've called Super Bowls and Final Fours, but I've never heard anything like open season here on KCAA. This show has no regard for human life, and that is a good thing.
And that is just the way we like it. Larry Burnett and Ted Sobel back with you here on Open Season. The Lakers play in Denver tomorrow night. That means, well, it's hard to believe, just 11 games left in Kobe Bryant's illustrious career. His final game will be April 13th against Utah, and that will be the final game for Lakers athletic trainer Gary Vitti as well. Now, Vitti has been on the job for 32 years. He has seen a lot of injuries. I asked him about the ones that have impacted him the most. Here's Gary.
Probably the two worst things that I saw in the NBA. First was not an injury, but at the time, Magic being seropositive for HIV. That was very traumatic, emotionally. The second thing that was troublesome, it's not necessarily the worst injury, but it was the circumstances where Julius Randle broke his leg his rookie year, 14 minutes into the first game of his career at 19 years old. There's been worse injuries, obviously, and I've seen worse injuries, but there's something about that. A 19-year-old kid, rookie, worked so hard to get here, worked so hard in training camp. He's in his first NBA game, and he breaks his leg in a fluke accident. So those are the two things that weighed heavy on my heart.
Talking to Gary Vitti here on Open Season, your retirement coincides with Kobe's retirement, and almost fitting. He's played his entire career here. You've been here for his entire career. Did that factor into your decision? Would it have been difficult for you to come back on a year when Kobe wasn't here?
No, it really didn't factor in. It's the right time for him, and it's the right time for me. It's coincidental that it's the same time. But I'm glad it worked out that way, and I think he is too. We constantly talk about retirement because we're both looking at it. Okay, so it's not one-sided; it's actually two-sided. I am the only. We discussed this a few weeks ago that I am the only person on the planet that has seen every single game that he's played, every minute that he's played. Yeah. So that's kind of fitting that we're going out together, and it's this business is cyclic. I mean, you have a team that wins, for a period of time, and then it's hard to keep that up, and then they're on the downturn of the cycle, and then they build back up again, and so that's happened with me. I came in at the top, we went to the bottom, we went back to the top, went back to the bottom, went back to the top, now we're back at the bottom again. And for me to run that whole cycle again, I think would be difficult.
People always talk about Kobe playing through pain and injuries, and I think you've even called him a warrior as well. What sets him apart from some of the other athletes you've dealt with?
Kobe Bryant, and I've said this before, no matter what you think of him, there's 5 things that you cannot take away from him. One is his talent, but truth be told, he's not the most talented player of all time, okay? But he is talented, so we'll give him that one, okay? 2, his work ethic. He works harder than anyone that I've ever worked with. 3, his competitiveness. I mean, he'll do anything to win, anything, okay? And I mean, he will rip your heart out to win a game of tiddlywinks. I mean, he's just the way he's programmed. 4, he is the toughest individual that I've ever been around. And 5, he's intellectually brilliant. And so, when you put that together, those 5 things, then you end up with a Kobe Bryant. And, some people have one of those things, sometimes 2. I think you need to play in the NBA. There's 3 things. There's talent, there's brains, and there's toughness. Okay? If you have 2 of those things, okay, you can get in the NBA. If you have 3 of those things, you're a superstar.
I think it's interesting. There's been the farewell tour for Kobe, but not a whole lot of hoopla for Gary Vitti's retirement. I'm kind of campaigning for at least a 2 or 3 week farewell tour for you. Maybe you can get some adhesive tape and tongue depressors for the rest of your life. What are your thoughts as you head out?
Well, I'm getting plenty of attention, actually. Because of the retirement, everybody seems to want to grab me as I'm walking out the door and asking me what was it like.
Yeah.
And so, my thoughts about leaving the game. I won't miss the road at all. Okay, and that's probably the number one reason to retire is to just get off the road. I will miss home games because they're fun. Everybody wants to be at the home game. I mean, that's not a job. That's a blessing. And I'll miss the camaraderie mostly. I think just being around the guys and in the training room, the locker room, and there's a lot of laughs in here. It's fun.
A couple of final questions here for Gary Vitti. You've developed an identity with this team. I remember when I first came out here, we both had hair, and you had a lot of hair back then. But you've developed an identity. I mean, you're the Lakers guy. Are you afraid that you lose some of that identity when you step away from the job?
I'm not really worried about it. It's being the head athletic trainer for the Los Angeles Lakers is a fabulous job, and it's what I do, but it's not who I am. Okay? As a person, people can treat you differently when you're in a position like this. And so I'm not really worried about that because I don't feel, I may be fooling myself, but I don't feel like I was ever grossly affected by the position.
My final question to Gary Vitti is this. How many times have people come up to you, maybe strangers, maybe people at Laker games, and said, Gary, I got this little pain in my shoulder. I got this pain in my knee. What should I do for it?
Yeah, it's daily. I tell them to go see a doctor. Okay.
Thanks so much for the time. Great run for you. I'm glad I could be a little bit of a part of it, and thanks for coming on Open Season to talk about it.
Thanks, Larry. Great knowing you all these years.
You got it. And we're not going anywhere for a while, I hope, right?
I hope not.
And Gary Vitti's not going anywhere for a while. He'll finish out this season. Then he's got a contract to stay on. I think it's a year or two as a consultant. It's got a big, long title, but he'll be around. But somebody else will be handling that job. It's going to be kind of strange, Ted.
Yeah, it really will be. But hey, 30 years?
32.
32 years. That's long enough, and good for him. I'm glad he's still around. He's a great guy, and we talked about off the air that he has a place in Italy. Told him, I said, I'd love to visit you sometime just to check out whatever kind of home cooked meal you can come up with.
Oh yeah. And you know what's interesting? I remember I met Gary in '88, and then remember early '90s when all of a sudden the Lakers weren't in the playoffs. Gary was talking to me. He said, we get used to getting that playoff share that gets voted every year. And it was, you counted on it. And then all of a sudden you weren't getting that money. So the winning means a lot to a lot of people in different ways. But, even the trainers are involved in that gravy train as well. Okay, we got about 2 minutes left here, Ted.
Yeah.
At the end of last week's show, I said, are you keeping track of things down at Indian Wells in the tennis? And we talked about that a little bit. Well, after the tournament is when it all blew up. This Raymond Moore, who was the CEO and tournament director at Indian Wells, went out and said, I think the Women's Tennis Association, in my next life when I come back, I want to be someone in the WTA because they ride on the coattails of the men. They don't make any decisions, and they are lucky. They're very, very lucky. If I was a lady player, I'd go down every night on my knees and thank God that Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal were born because they have carried this sport. They really have. Well, this guy was forced to resign. He apologized. Novacek comes out and he's talking about equal pay and things like that. There's a storm of bees around this whole thing now.
Yeah, well, first of all, his name should be Raymond Moron because I can't believe he's. How are you the CEO of a tournament, the next best to a major on this planet, and say that? By the way, there's about 50% of what he said which is true.
I agree. But you don't say it.
You don't say it, but the 50% that is true is outside of Serena Williams, it's the rest of the women that have to thank the other tour because nobody cares about the rest of the women. It's Serena, but it's the same as Tiger Woods because Tiger Woods, when he is dominating play and you're a superstar, you are just more than just a player. You are something that supersedes even the sport. So now when Tiger's gone and fortunately, golf is in a good spot right now. But when Serena leaves, who's going to replace her? In women's tennis, they got a major, major issue. But outside of that, you got to be the biggest fool to even think than say that, and you're a CEO of a tournament. It's unbelievable.
And I wish we had more time to talk about it, but this equal pay thing is something that bugs me too. Equal pay means you play 5 sets the way the men do, not 3 sets. You want the same kind of money, you want the same kind of importance and power, you go out and play 5 sets and do it the way the men do, and then you deserve to get equal pay.
And I agree with you to a point, but there's also who's selling the seats, right? I mean, who's putting fannies in the seats? And right now, if it's not Serena, it's certainly not Vika Azarenka.
You got that right. And we are out of here. Next Thursday, we'll be talking Final Four and baseball openers coming up right here on Open Season, 3:05 p.m. Until then, try to have some fun, folks.
What good is what you've got if you're not having any fun? Are you having any laugh? Are you getting any love? If other people do, so can you have a little fun. After the honey's in the comb.
This is 1050 AM, KCAA Loma Linda, and 106.5 FM, Yucaipa.
I'm John Lesher, CNBC Radio. A week of mostly light trading ended with stocks posting their first weekly loss in 5 weeks, even though the Dow rose 13 points and the Nasdaq was up 4. A slide in banks and other financial services companies kept stocks down right up until the final hour of trading. Prudential Financial was down 5%, Morgan Stanley 3%. Orders for long-lasting manufacturing